Hey, I'm Chris Januszewski, and welcome to Rebellious Times podcast. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to Angie Ismail, CEO of Fint AI for Corporate Finance. And today's episode is called Balancing the Books and Life: How Modern CFOs Are Ending Spreadsheet Slavery. Angie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. And I love the title of this show.
I'm, I'm I'm glad you like it. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a lot of people are slaves to spreadsheets. So
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. So we're actually recording this on a Friday for anybody that cares. And it's the end of the week. We've been working hard all week. So we keep want to keep this upbeat and see if we can get out of this working week with a bang. So Angie, I'd love to start by telling me about your journey from finance to tech entrepreneurship.
Yeah, of course. Like everybody in tech, I think I started just by being curious. So I've been doing tech related stuff and startup for now almost 15 years, even a little bit more. Yeah, 16 years. And I graduated from a business school. Then I did a master degree in computer science. Then started my first tech startup in 2009. So I just learned a lot of these things and the different version, I would say, of what is called a tech product. And also I had a role as a product head of product at a enterprise software. So like we kind of build our background by just trying things and by leaning into new technology. Recently, AI has been like the big revolution. Finance on that side, I was in a business school, so I got some of the basics, and then as a founder myself, I always been looking at my books, looking at my finance, and doing all that work. But the real, I would say, trigger and the real start for Fint, especially is that we used to be a new bank, like a cross-border banking app with Fint, and we had all sort of compliance, reconciliation, and issue with bank statements and this stuff. So we just realized that it was a problem for all companies, not only financial services. And when we had to pivot because our banking partner went bankrupt, unfortunately, we just started to think very hard about what we should do. And we realized that was a big problem to solve. So that's, I would say, how we got into what Fint is today.
Brilliant, brilliant. And um, tell me about your customers of Fint. Who do you work with? Who do you help, and how do you help them? Or how do you help them knock out these spreadsheets that have been making everybody's life miserable?
Yeah. So it's still early, but like we work with mid market and larger enterprise. I would say our biggest customer in terms of revenue, they are 35, $40 billion group. So it's 4,500. So we worked with the companies that have a lot of different cash flows. They have multiple entities, multiple geographies, currencies. So that create a lot of consolidation needs and reconciliation and intercol, and it creates a bunch of exceptions that basically make traditional automation and also spreadsheet work very very manual. And this is where we bring in AI and agents to actually automate some of this work in a much smarter way than traditional automation. But yeah, we address corporate finance department, accounting, controllership, FP&A, and even internal audit. And yeah, it's been very interesting because they are great people to work with. They are the least laziest people in the company compared to some other department that just love to try new tools every day. They really think deep before they start implementing something, because yeah, they can work this crowd can work up to 2 a.m. to close books, and they will say, "Oh, I'm not going to automate anything if you do not deliver, much more value than what we can do today." So it's very, very interesting to work with this crowd.
Yeah, yeah. In my experience working in strategic partnerships, it was always a good idea to have finance teams on your side to get your business models and terms out of the door.
The other one would pay everybody, right? So at the end of the day, you'd rather have them as allies than enemies.
Absolutely. So, in terms of implementing AI within the finance world, what are you seeing when you get into companies in terms of data quality, and how does that impact your tool?
Yeah, I mean, you know what we say, right? Like shit in, shit out, or like whatever, like bad data in, bad outputs. And it's even more true with AI, right? Like I think we've seen it if you start prompting even ChatGPT with like just random stuff, or if you give it too much data that are not contextualized, do not have any relationship between each other, or you do not explain the models how to treat the data, it's going to be producing very weird output, and sometimes, of course, all sort of hallucinations and stuff like that. So obviously in finance, you cannot have hallucination. You have to have very high level of accuracy. And that starts by, treating the quality of the data that you want to input to the agent, to the models. And to do that, there are multiple traditional ways. I don't think you need to recreate a new data pipeline. But it's true that in large enterprise, a lot of the data and a lot of the knowledge more than the data is unstructured, right? It's sitting inside some notes, some emails, some Slack or Teams message. Of course, you have also unstructured data inside structured, for example, like a spreadsheet. It's kind of a database. So you can think of, oh, yeah, I have rows, I have columns. So it should be very easy to understand what it is. But the fact is that when you go to a team, everybody loves inputting comments in those spreadsheets, right? And then you have things that do not relate really well to the rows, and they start merging cells and doing all sort of pivot table, etc. So I think there is, of course, like a digital transformation that's happening, and people are starting to understand, okay, if we do that piece of work, then the models and the agents are going to be helping us much in a much better way. Um, and I would say, just to end on that thing, is like the data quality and how you are going to put the data into a flat mode that is, ready to be ingested and ready to be worked on by agent or AI, is to understand what the output that you're expecting. And so that's where there is like all these new tools to do evaluation of the output, and keeping the human in the loop at the end, because the human knows what you expect out of it. And if you know what to expect, then you can guess what the model needs to work with. And so I think that's why it's super interesting. Say, okay, here's a report we want to build. How would you build it if you like as a human? How you build it? What do you use, right? And so then you select the piece of context that you need, and then you feed that with the proper instructions, the proper system prompt, and so on, to actually have the models do their work. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and of course it's a bit challenging, especially when you get into very large companies. But we like it.
You like it, yeah, yeah, and we're at a stage where people are concerned about AI, and AI is going to take my job, and um, in reality, AI can't automate everything. Like in every use case, there's really a human element that's needed, and then maybe there's a point in the future where we can get to these levels of automation where it's almost taking everything over, but there's a human element to it. When you're implementing your solution in a large company, uh, kind of how many people do you have to train? Like, what is the process for helping the human element, maintain control of this AI system that's intended to help them do their job better?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, great question. And I think coming back on what you said, like AI is going to take your job. I think AI is going to take a lot of jobs, but I definitely think that people who are thinking through it are capable of defending, or like keeping edge versus the models and versus AI, right? Like if they start adopting themselves AI to augment their job, then it's much harder to replace them. And I think the training, like there is multiple concept in AI, right? Like fine tuning models is starting to be less and less relevant. I think now people start to understand that general models are capable of doing great stuff, and you can run them for pretty cheap. They are very fast now, and so it's more about, like, again, how you're gonna are you going to give it the proper context and the proper data? Just like if you had an intern, right? Like if you had an intern or just a junior person joining your team, you're starting by an onboarding, right? You say, hey, you have this 30, 60, 90 days ramp up plan, and you're going to learn all these things, right? And with AI, you can say that this 30, 60, 90 days is like coming to 5 minutes, right? In 5 minutes, you can give it like 800 pages PDF of a procedure, one video recording, and some explanation of what is expected, and he will start working on this. So I think um, preparing what data you need, as I said, is like what do you expect on the output side, and for us, what is pretty great, and I think there are a lot of jobs like this, but in controllership, in accounting, human is always in the loop because there is a need for a controller, an auditor, a different life stage or life cycle of the financial procedures. You will always have a human, right? So here the goal is to say, who is the human in the loop that knows exactly what's going to be the quality of this output, of this report or this reconciliation table or whatever it is. And so if you bring that person who have the knowledge to discuss with the agent, then you get, I would say, 80% of the job done. Of course, for in our case, and I think that's probably also for other entrepreneurs working in that space, looking at jobs who have clear documentation, this is really good. Because the more documentation you have, the better it is for the model. So if you have like screen recording of how something works, if you have documented step by step flows or chart diagram of how things work, that will help. And now models, they have vision capability, so they can look at the video. Like technically, they don't watch the video, but they can understand what's going on the video. They can also understand what's happening on the diagram where you say action A's and B's, and if this happens, and you go here and there. So again, just like onboarding someone with those material really, really helps. So if you combine the documentation plus the knowledge from the person who is going to judge the quality of the output at the end, that make it like a great way to start onboarding your agent and your AI tools.
Yeah. Brilliant. Great advice there with getting your documentation in order. A slight tangent here, and it's kind of something I just thought of, and I was thinking about it yesterday. So when I don't watch movies that often. I'm always kind of exhausted from the kids. But when I do, it's generally movies that I used to watch when I was younger, right? It's always the same ones, Casino or whatever. And last night I put Terminator on. So the original. Yeah, and I tell you, when you watch Terminator now, and in this current environment of AI, it's almost like I'm watching him, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so this I need to fight this guy. This guy's Chat GPT. Like, how would I make him hallucinate? Like, how can I push him to his limits? And yeah, the conversations they have about this intelligence that's come along in Terminator, it almost makes you feel like it was written and produced maybe three years from now, right? It's so accurate to how we're talking about AI now. It's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's true. And like, I have something with my friend where we kind of like make fun of what are the proof that we are not ourselves already living in a simulation that was created by a chat GPT and all these things, right? Like Matrix or Terminator, as you said. So I think it's really interesting because at some point, like all the sci-fi movies and comics, etc., at some point they are coming like to reality in a certain way, of course. And I think, yeah, we are lucky to have to our experimenting with this technology that can make us feel everything is possible. But on the side note, there is obviously so much that is still not possible. Like, for example, AI have very, very hard way to interact with um, the real world, and it doesn't understand, it doesn't comprehend the real world because the training, the data sets that are available in the world is not well documented for the real world. Like, how do you bring 4D inside, inside like a computer? This is very hard. So I think we're still very far from like Skynet and all that and Terminator. But definitely, it's exciting time to kind of say, "Oh shit! Now it's a time where machines are starting to be super smart, and we can do crazy things." So yeah, for me, like I'm super excited about that.
I'm excited and a little apprehensive. Like we've got Waymo in Austin, these driverless. As soon as I see a Waymo car behind me and there's no driver, the bad part of me comes out and I want to test it. Like I want to brake hard or I want to just swerve near it and just see what it does. And then we've also got Musk trying to roll out his Optimus robots. And I don't know how I'm going to feel when I see one of those guys walking down the street.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And Waymo is an amazing experience, but they are teleoperated. So like when the car is stopped, like when someone is trying to um to kind of play with it in a way, like someone is just stopping in front of the car and waiting. So there is like a human teleoperator that's going to move it. I think for robots that are fully autonomous, I think it's going to make a little bit of time, but there are a lot of like good innovation in robotics that are capable of doing small tasks very well. And I hope like in the next 5, 10 years, nobody at home, of course, this is a first world problem. Like it's for the 1% people that are going to be able to buy those 5,000, 10,000 robots. But like, I don't know, getting your dishes out of the washer, or like putting your socks in the dryer. This is things that we should not have to do anymore. And I think it's coming. Like this is already, you see all these video on YouTube where you have like a robotic arm that's taking from the washing machine and putting it in the dryer, for example. And I think that's great opportunity. We have much better way and much better things to do as human than doing all those chores.
Once that comes out, I'm buying it immediately because I'm always getting my butt kicked off my wife for not doing those very things. So yeah, I'm the first customer. Right. Let's switch a bit. So you're a tech founder in the finance space and you come across as super relaxed, but you also, you're a founder, so you're working super hard. What's kind of your experience of this whole work-life balance in the tech space and how do you manage to keep your sanity?
Yeah, I think it changed during my career. It's still early, of course. I'm still planning, to do a lot of good things. I have probably like 25, 30 years in front of me to build amazing stuff. But I think like every founder, I started my first company just out of school, so I was like working. Maybe I was calling it work. I was working maybe 18 hours a day. But the truth is that I was just trying different stuff. And I think in life you have multiple kind of phases in your career where at the beginning you just don't know where you're going to be good at. So it's very cool and very important, I think, for younger founders and younger professionals just to get a lot of things going on, right? Like to cook, like have multiple plates going on and multiple recipe if you want that you want to try with. And maybe you do 6 hours of coding and then 6 hours of selling and 6 hours of whatever, right? And so you get yourself busy and so you see what works. I think it's also a way to just balance the fact that you don't have experience and you don't know how to make good decision, or at least make fast decision. When you're a bit younger, you tend to have very strong opinion on things and be very hard to kind of be agile and iterate on things. So I would say for the first 5, 8 years of my life as a founder, I was, working and just, working hard and hustle and sleeping very late and doing all these things that are not good for health. But you can sustain it when you're younger, and also you compensate again for lack of experience, lack of network, and lack of self. I would say judgment. But yeah, for the past 10 years, I've been just like reducing much more my time frame. Not only because I had my daughter, but also then I had my son, and just I just wanted to make sure I take enough time for my family, my friends, and my mental health. And I think that's very important, especially because you cannot create too much of this what I call social debt, where you basically just miss so many souvenir and so many moments with what is really important. And if we are founders, if we are starting companies, we are great professionals working in corporate. At the end of the day, it's to pay our great weekends with friends, our holidays with kids, and all of that, right? And to retire in a wealthy way so that, we just can enjoy life. But the thing is that, yeah, of course, if you just work, 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 the issue is that you're going to miss so much that you can never get back. And s- like, I think for me, it's that balance that I understood a little bit later, where I kind of found myself say, okay, I need to balance. And by balancing, I reduce the time of my work and I can be much more productive. I'm also forced to make more decision. Uh, and also I was saying to make harder decision because if you have time, if you have 20 hours a day, you can say, hey, I'm going to do this at the end of the day. So you procrastinate a lot and you do that for several months. You say, oh, I'm not going to decide on this, etc. If you have like 8, 9 hours a day, you say, I need to go all through all of this. And so I need to make decision, right? And I need to do things. So I think this is how um, I find my personal balance. And I hope, more people just are comfortable with however they want. But that's my point of view.
Yeah, fantastic. I wish I'd heard this advice when I was in my 20s, because in my 20s, it took me a while to get going in my career. And I was, having fun. I was going out with my friends and stuff. But I wish I'd tried more things. Like you say, I was doing a lot of sales roles back then. Maybe I should have invested more time in actually, studying different things in computer science and that. And then, it's different problems with different stages in your life, right? So I was doing more life than work back then. And now when I've got three kids and a very young one, to actually get my own work-life balance, starting a business at the same time, I've found it pretty tough over the last few months, and it affects all areas of your life. And again, like you say, you don't get the time back. You've got to find a way to obviously grow your business, but maybe be a little smarter instead of working, when your time is limited and you can't do a 14-hour day, maybe you can only do a 6 or an 8-hour day. Just be really um, strong at prioritizing the things that are absolutely vital and important for the growth. And then, yeah, just think about the people around you that still need you, regardless of how much money you're making, your spouse, your kids, your friends. Maybe you can't commit your time to a wide circle of friends, got your closest friends, and yeah, that balance, everything has to be working for you to feel comfortable. And when things are out of sync, that's when you get the stress, and that's when it's more difficult to cope. So yes, it's interesting, different stages.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff here. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Angie. I know you're probably itching to get off for that, maybe that first beer or whatever you're planning on doing with the weekend. And so I just want to wish you all the best, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. It kind of lagged at the very end. Uh, so I don't know if you want to redo it and cut it. I don't know. Maybe it's a fine.
Let's redo it again, yeah, because I've been going in and out. So I'll go back to the thanks. So I'll say, okay, thanks very much, Angie. This has been a really interesting podcast. I've really enjoyed spending time with you, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Yeah, and going to enjoy the weekend, as I said. Yeah, I hope you do too. The same, Chris.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. So I'm staying here.